Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shasco and today we're actually in Sword Burst 3. What I want to do is show off two amazing class builds that I love using all the time. They just completely shred all the enemies. One of them requires a game pass and that will be the second class we show off, but the first build requires no game passes, no Robux, none of that stuff, so let's get right into it. First is gonna be the Scythe class or the Scythe build. So obviously you're gonna need to obtain some form of Scythe. It does not need to be Soul Chill, this just is the best Scythe in the game right now. It could be Ghost Scythe, it could be literally any Scythe at any point, and then you could follow along this video, it does not matter. Now if you have a Scythe, I recommend going for a 10% critical enchant on it, just because getting the most crit chance possible, in my opinion, tends to give you the most damage possible. So whenever I'm mobbing and just doing my leveling up quests, I always like to use Whirlwind, Flurry, and then I also like to use Scythe Throw, and then I also like to use Agility with it so I can just move around the map a lot faster. All of these moves have very good damage, and they also have very low cooldowns, which makes them pretty effective for all the mobbing and quick leveling up quests. Now the only downside is Flurry and Whirlwind. You do need to be in the enemy's face for them to do a lot of damage, but they have a quick cooldown and a quick animation, so it's never really an issue. If you are worrying about your health, you can always use regeneration instead of agility. I just usually use agility for mobbing. And then if you have one of those 10 mob portals spawn in, or maybe a giant mob, you could always equip Wraith Summon instead of Whirlwind. So Wraith Summon is like the ult of Scythe in a way. It has a long cooldown and requires 60 SP, so it is very expensive, but it does a ton of damage. It is one of the most damaging moves, if not the most damaging move in the entire game. So it is very, very effective against giant mobs, or it is also just effective if you group up all the mobs together, then use this, it'll probably shred all of them. Now for your armor for this build, armor doesn't really matter too much. I always like to go for a 10% critical enchant, and then my other enchant on it, I like to have SP regen, just because then you're able to use all your moves and then you're getting more crit chance. This is the armor I'm going to use for every single build, but in reality your armor doesn't matter too much. What really matters is the skills that you are using. If you're using this class against the final boss, for a good example, what I always like to use is Scythe Throw, Wide Slash, and then I also like to keep on using the Wraith Summon, and then I'm always going to be using regeneration in the boss area just because they do a lot of damage. Now the Wraith Summon is a little bit risky to use, but you can always put this down and then run away and then use your two ranged attacks on the boss while your Wraith Summon still does a bunch of damage. So another thing I like to do is go for all ranged attack on the Scythe. So instead of Wraith Summon, I'll use Frost Blaze with Wide Slash and then Scythe Throw. This is giving you 3 solid ranged attacks, which is very good for bossing if you're maybe not as good at dodging things or you want to play a little bit safer, because you're always going to be a far distance away from the enemy and you're still able to do a lot of damage with this setup. So another option is always to just go all out range with the Scythe as well. And just for transparency, my Scythe setup gear isn't as powerful as my dual wield gear, so the dual wield setup will look a lot stronger, even though in reality it is pretty much as strong as the Scythe build. So for the dual wield build, you unfortunately do need an 800 Robux game pass. You always want your highest level weapon in your right hand and then your lower level weapon in your left hand, because your dual wield attack takes 1/4 of the damage from your second weapon and adds it to your overall damage. So what I like to do is go for as much critical percent as I can, because 25% is really great, and with dual wield you're hitting enemies so often that oftentimes it is just better to go for critical chance, but it may be better for me to go for 35% instead of 25%. So let's get right into it. So if I am mobbing and running around the map, what I like to use is Venom Strike, Dual Flurry, and then also Dual Energy Cleave with the Agility skill. These skills are very, very powerful, especially the Dual Energy Cleave. It does so much damage for a 5-second cooldown, and then Venom Strike just has such a low SP cost, it is super effective. And then the Dual Flurry is one of the best skills in the entire game, simply because it hits the enemies 10 times. So if you have a high critical chance, this is going to be giving you a stupid amount of damage, because you have a higher chance of criticalling every single 10 hit, and overall this just leads to some ridiculous DPS. So this setup shreds mobbing, and it also is pretty effective against bosses as well, but it is a little bit risky to be using Venom Strike in boss areas, simply because you have to literally dash into the boss's face to use this, and obviously attacking a boss like that can be a little risky because they can melt you very, very quickly. You can always switch out agility for regeneration if you are finding yourself taking way too much damage. Now if you are bossing with this setup and fighting the final boss in the game, I'd almost recommend using frost blades with dual flurry and then dual energy cleave with regeneration, because then you're going to be getting 2 ranged attacks, which is a lot better than just 1, because most of the time against the enemy boss you want to be ranged, you don't want to be in their face because they're doing a lot of damage. Now, you want to keep dual flurry because dual flurry just is that powerful. Whenever you can use this in the enemy's face, always go for it because it is always like your best option. It just does so much damage. Using that after popping your healing is also a great choice because you'll be healing while doing a bunch of damage, so you can always just do that. And again, in the boss area, you can always do Venom Strike, dual flurry with dual energy cleave, and you can even run agility in there if you want to. It is just very, very risky to do that setup, and you die a lot of the times, but your damage output is very, very high, so it is really up to you guys what you want to do there. Anyways, this isn't a very long video. I hope you guys enjoyed me showing off 2 amazing endgame class setups I love using all the time. Both of them are just so powerful. Let me know down below what you guys think of Sword Burst 3. I would love to keep making more content on this game. I've been playing it a ton the last couple of days. If you guys haven't checked out this game, I definitely recommend doing so. But anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye!